Hey, sports cards fans, this is Ray from Philly, and welcome to the Sports Card Hall of Fame Network. For the past 5 years, we've done the Baseball Card Hall of Fame. Myself, Mike, this Baseball Card Life, and Victor, the Rookie Card Specialist. But here, for the first time ever, this is the first annual Football Card Hall of Fame. Really looking forward to this. But we got two new commissioners that are running football, since I know nothing about football cards. And the two new commissioners are Bart of Bart's Cards and Scott of Scoonie Tradition. Welcome aboard, guys, and we're really excited to get this thing rolling for the Football Card Hall of Fame. How you guys doing tonight?
Hey, how's it going, Ray?
I'm doing good. Scott, how you doing, man?
How's it going, Ray?
Good. Before we get started, why don't you guys introduce yourselves to everybody? Just give a quick 30-second description of why you collect football, what do you collect football for? Just a kind of brief synopsis description of your channels and what each of you do.
Well, I'll go first. I'm Bart. YouTube channel is Bart's Cards. Been collecting what seems like forever, but I guess since probably about 1990.
Okay.
Always been predominantly football. I've always kind of collected baseball and basketball a little bit as we go, but football's been the primary. Heavy 49ers and heavy Hall of Fame rookie cards. I lean towards the PSA side of the house. I got about 4,500 slabs, but I got plenty of boxes of Ross, just like everybody. I love it all, and I collect it all.
All right. Good stuff, Bart. Again, I'm Scotty Tradition. My name is Scott. I'm a Packers collector predominantly, but I do collect a lot of football stuff and a lot of vintage, also other sports as well. I'm on the PSA set registry. I have the second or third best all-time Packers set, I think it is at this point. I'm not sure. I haven't looked in a while. But suffice to say, I've been collecting football cards for a good long time, and just a huge fan of the game, and especially the early players and how the game, those players help kind of build the game. And you're going to probably hear about some of those players as we go through the ballot tonight. So just really excited to get into this.
I can't wait, guys. You guys are, to me, the two best guys on YouTube when it comes to football cards. So without further ado, we're going to bring on the ballot now so people could start voting now. It's very simple. It's run the same way how me and Mike and Vic do the Baseball Card Hall of Fame. So you guys are going to take it from here. You can talk about each card if you want and just let it roll and have fun with everybody. I'll see you guys real soon at the end of the show. Bart and Scott, you take it away on the ballot. Take care.
I appreciate it, Ray. I'll give a shout out to Mike in the background for keeping us out of trouble and keeping slides going and things like that. But me and Scott are excited to present this ballot in our first annual. We've got 45 cards to show off to you today, and we look to do this every year. We're going to let 10 cards get in on the first year, and that's what we presume will be the standard increment going forward. We talked about having different amounts of cards on the ballot, but once we got past about 45, we stopped agreeing so much, and we started dabbling with cards that maybe we just didn't think that needed to be even considered for a first ballot. So 45 is a nice round number for us on this one. The ballot will be in a link below the video. You'll be able to vote for up to 10 cards just once overall per voter, and just so that you know, myself and Scotty, we will not be voting towards the cards. But we do have the caveat, if somehow there's a magical tie for number 10, we'll be that tiebreaker for it. But other than that, we got 45 cards that we're excited to show you. We'll do a little back and forth describing the cards, a little bit about the sets and things like that, but we'll try not to go too long, as 45 cards could make a long video if we wanted to spew all our knowledge off at you. But let's get after it, and we'll go with card one. Just so that you know, the order of the cards is just starting from the oldest to most modern. No other particular order goes along with that. We start with 33 Sports Kings, Red Grange, the Galloping Ghost. You can't talk about football and how it started and everything else without Red Grange. Sport Kings was not a completely football set. Many of you know, especially if you're baseball fans, they had some other folks in there, the Ty Cobbs, the Babe Ruths and things. But we snuck a couple of football players in there. We're excited to have it. And Red Grange is one of those. Just love this card, everything about it, and what he represents to the hobby as a whole. Scott, you got anything on him?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Red Grange is kind of one of those players that really pushed forward the game of football after the 19 teens. And him, along with the next player we're going to talk about, Jim Thorpe, are two players really responsible for making the football popular around that time. So the Red Grange, I think, has to be on this list, and no doubt has a good chance to, be on that first ballot along with Jim Thorpe as a first ballot Hall of Famer. But there's going to be a couple more options, as you'll see as we go. But I do really like this card, even though he's a Chicago Bear.
Got to make some concessions along the way for the history of the game, right? But
absolutely,
we'll let a Chicago Bear sneak in there. So with card number 2, as Scotty alluded to there, to Jim Thorpe. And it's kind of neat that these two cards and the two players kind of represent both ways to come into the NFL. Red Grange, University of Illinois, big time school at the time, got all the hype and all the newspapers and everything like that. And Jim Thorpe started the other way and just bounced around from every sport and every ragtag team you could think of, whatever he could do to make a couple bucks, and digging shoes out of the trash in order to play sports and things like that. But you almost can't tell the history of sports in America without Jim Thorpe, and we're thankful to claim him as a football player, despite him doing so many other things. So absolutely beautiful card, well centered. Just love it. Can't get enough of this one.
Yeah, absolutely, and for all intents and purposes, this is the Jim Thorpe and the Red Grange rookie cards here that we're talking about. And Jim Thorpe, by a lot, is considered the best athlete of at least the first half of the century. And he maybe made multi-sport athletes cool, before the Deion Sanders of the world. And, some of these players that played multiple sports. Jim Thorpe was the original, of course, being an Olympian before he played football, and he also played other sports as well.
Absolutely. Let's push on to slide 3, or player 3. 35 National Chickle, great set. The first nationally issued football set, completely football set. But Newt Rockne, not necessarily to the pros. He was a Notre Dame coach, but very famous in his own right for all the exploits that Notre Dame had. So he is the one coaching card within the 35 Chickle set. But the history of football and how we built the NFL came on the back of college football, and Newt Rockne was a big part of that. So excited to have this one in the ballot as well.
Yeah, if any of you guys have ever seen the movie Rudy, when Rudy's trying to redo the speech from Newt Rockne, win one for the Gipper, like that's the guy it came from, Newt Rockne. Had some very successful Notre Dame teams back in the day. So the card that definitely should be on this list. It's a very popular card amongst collectors.
Absolutely. So popular, some 90 years later, we still put Notre Dame on nationally televised football, no matter how good their team is, right?
I agree.
All right, up for number 4. This is the kind of the holy grail football card, if there is one. We've got the Babe Ruth that we hunt out in baseball, and football's got Bronco Nagurski. Just all around, all American, all pro. You name it, both sides of the ball. Bronco Nagurski represented everything hard-nosed and tough and fast and strong about football, and he really helped take it to another level. It does help play for the Chicago Bears as well. That was one of the big first teams there, and so they were a mainstay in making NFL strong and pro football strong, and he was the centerpiece of that.
Yeah, he was an absolute tank at the time. I think there's a player who played on defense against him back in that time that said the only way to stop Bronco Nagurski is to actually shoot him walking out of the locker room, because nobody's going to stop him on the field. He just was a tough-nosed player. I believe he's from Canada, Ontario, Canada. And just, the card itself is a short print, so very tough condition-wise as well. And just love the great Art Deco style of the 35 Chickle set. It's just a beautiful set.
All right, on to number 5. We move on to the 48 Leafs. We had a big gap in football set issues after 35, and so 48 is the next set that comes along. But there were black and white photos, and then they were filled in with color later. So there's lots of variations, but they highlight a whole host of different rookies, Hall of Fame rookies, and you'll see a couple of them here. But Sid Luckman, another one, and we got a lot of Chicago Bears coming in here, Scotty.
Yeah, the 30s and the 40s were, very Bears-centric, of course.
Absolutely. And not as many teams around, so that helps the cause for sure. But Sid Luckman, quarterback leading the Chicago Bears and a lot of winning teams, brought, the forward pass to the mainstay with some of his successes. So definitely had to give a tip of the cap and put him on the ballot here.
Yep, Sid Luckman. You could call this a very quarterback-centric set. I mean, you have the Sid Luckman, and then we'll talk about Bobby Lane coming up next as well, and Sammy Baugh. Those are all big-time quarterbacks all time. And then, of course, the Chuck Bednarik I'll mention as well, which will come up here in the next couple slides. Just a great set. It's a colorful set. I think a lot of collectors like that for that reason, as opposed to the 48 Bowman, which is a little more black and white. It's a cool set in its own right, but these are a lot more flashy and have a lot of collectability, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And 48 Leafs do transcend the hobby pretty well as well, because there's boxing 48 Leaf, there's baseball 48 Leaf, and so you can recognize the football pretty quickly. We'll move on to the next one, number 6 here. As alluded to, Bobby the Blonde Bomber Lane. I just picked this card up for my personal collection in the last week or so pretty excited about this one. I'll take an opportunity to mention, as you can see on the top of the back of this card, Bobby is spelt differently than it's on the front. A lot of random errors like that in 48 Leaf. They went and corrected a lot of them later. Some of them they inserted the nicknames like Blonde Bomber. But some cards, that player will have their nickname, and then the later issue of that card, they'll not have their nickname. So some interesting little nuances for the issues, but as Scotty said, just wonderfully colored cards as well. I like the art of it itself. I just like displaying 48 Leafs, as many as I can get my hands on almost. But the Blonde Bomber here, another Chicago Bear at the time, and a Texas Longhorn a favorite as well, but moved on to the Lions as well, and just a great all-around career.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of interesting color variations in the backgrounds of these cards, and slight color variations and variations in the numbers and the color of the football and different things like that. So you're right. There's a lot of variety with these cards. And
card stock. There's a kind of a toned out light tan card stock, and then there's that bright white that you see, and they're very different.
Right.
All right, on to number 7. The Slingin' Sammy Baugh. Redskins great from the 30s. Another huge part of the forward pass. It's a little rough to go back and look into some of the statistics of those guys, because interceptions did happen a lot back then. And some of it was because these guys were playing both sides of the ball, and they were also intercepting the ball, and that's why they were so great. But, just bringing the game to the front and making it popular and changing it each year by doing progressive things, especially in the passing game. That's why you're seeing all these quarterbacks so quickly.
Yeah, this is probably the most popular card of the set, in my opinion, the Sammy Baugh.
I'd agree with that, yeah.
The Bednariks are just a little more scarce, I think, to find. So so I think that while that is a big card and it goes for a lot of money, the Sammy Baugh is definitely the most popular of the set.
Agreed. And with that, number 8, Charles Chuck Bednarik.
Concrete Charlie.
Concrete Charlie. If you got a name like that, you just can't beat it. I remember growing up watching, NFL films videos of this guy's hands and how they were all mangled and everything else. And he was just the toughest dude. If you saw footage of him, he was usually bleeding from random places on his face and wherever. And he didn't care. And he was playing offensive line, defensive line, and just an awesome player for the Eagles.
Yeah, but I'm a defensive football player fan myself, so I would love to add this card at some point, and just have not got the chance yet, because it is, as I mentioned, pretty pricey.
It is. I got one in the PC, thankfully, a long time ago. It's still not high grade because it was expensive back then, and they're very scarce to find as well. And 48 Leaf is plagued by centering issues and things. And obviously with that bold color, you'll find some snowing problems. So even when you find one, it's not necessarily what you're looking for. You got to be a little bit picky, but it's tough because of how scarce this specific card is as well. All right, we'll move on to number 9. And we'll go into the next year, 1950 Bowman, a much smaller card, but kind of neat with the photos, a little bit more artistic with it, and you didn't see the names and things until you flipped it over on the back. But Otto Graham, he came into the NFL after winning multiple championships, basically every championship there was in the All-American Football Conference. I'm still a little salty about that because my Niners were the other good team in the AAFC and lost a couple of those championships to them, and nobody remembers that part, but they always remember Otto Graham for winning all of them. Just a great quarterback, just known for winning nonstop and the whole time he was on the field. And 50 Bowman's a great classic set that does match the baseball set as well.
Yeah, he won a lot. I think he was named like maybe All-Pro 9 of his 10 years or something ridiculous like that, and won a lot. And I actually was fortunate enough to pick up this card last year at a collection. So really, really cool to get that. It's one of my favorite sets because of just the picture on the front. It's very simplistic. Obviously a big fan of the Tony Canadeo rookie card, and I'm sure you're a fan of the Y.A. Tittle as well. It's just a great set.
Absolutely. All right, number 10, Tom Landry. Obviously, most of them know him as the coach of the America's team, I guess, the Cowboys, and however so many years he was there. But he was a defensive back for the Giants. Before that, he's not a Hall of Famer as far as a player goes, but he is a Hall of Famer as a football coach. And with that lore and the mystique that he brought to the Cowboys and things, obviously his rookie card with a beautiful set like 1951 Bowman in the color, and a little bit bigger than 50 Bowman for sure, is very popular and sought after. And thankfully, you can find it pretty well centered in a lot of issues as well.
Agreed. Beautiful card. Very well known as the Cowboys head coach for many years. I think there was a stat out there where he didn't finish under 500, 20 straight seasons, wow. It just speaks to his consistency. And just a great set. That the 50, 51, and 52 Bowman sets are all just beautiful cards in my opinion.
Absolutely. Full nostalgia on those sets. Number 11. 52 Bowman large. All right. So 1952 Bowman had two issues, the large and the small. The small was a little bit more prevalent. Large was scarce and always more expensive because of that. I think the smaller, you'll find them a little bit better centered as well. But if you get a large one and you get it nice card, the bold color, the size of it, especially when you're comparing it to the previous years of cards, is just amazing. And then Jim Lansford, the final card in that set, how they did the printing processes and things like that. That card has been tough and sought after for years. I remember as a kid looking in Beckett's, and you always just kind of scrolled and see, through the columns, what card had the most digits assigned to it, i.e. was the most valuable. And this was that card, multiple thousands of dollars, even as a little kid, and, just for a raw card. Great set. A lot of these players are depicted in their college uniforms, and this is no different. Can't say enough about it. Great set, and you got to have some representatives for that set here in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, being the last card in the set, obviously prone to lots of condition issues and things like that, and a short print. So it's very, very hard to find in high grade. And I think I would liken this a lot to the 52 Topps Andy Pafko for baseball. It's just one of those cards that's really tough to find. And you're like, okay, well, why is this card so sought after? And, there's a reason for it. It's just where it was on the sheet. It's the fact that it's a short print and you can't find it in good condition. So that's what makes the Jim Lansford very sought after for collectors.
Absolutely. Number 12. Another 52. Frank Gifford. Obviously, he's more than just Kathy Lee's husband, but many of us grew up watching her and having him on that show every once in a while, and obviously saw him in the football booth as well for many years. He was a mainstay, but he himself was quite a player back in the 50s. And, the pose and the picture on this alone just screams classic football. Got the teeth Beautiful. Out, no face mask, the colored, helmet as opposed to just that plain brown one. It just pops all the way around. You can't beat it. And he was a Giants guy, so that always helps as well, right? That helps when you're when you're playing in New York.
It helps the collectability of certain cards for sure. And, Frank Gifford, I think I had read a stat that he had won All-Pro at 3 different positions or made the Pro Bowl at 3 different positions. So it just kind of shows you how good of an all-around player he was, and just another great example of a 52 Bowman card.
Absolutely. It's tough. We forget sometimes how good these guys were and how diverse of athletes they were when they played. Number 13. Another classic, Jim Thorpe. Love this set as a whole, 1955 Topps All-American. All 100 cards, great set. But if there was anything left wanting from his 33 Sport Kings, it was just maybe seeing more of them. And so the 55 Topps All-American provides that. The classic, Indian head with the feathers there for Carlisle. Just a great card representing a beautiful colored set. And then kind of an anomaly. There are a fair number of vertical cards in 55 All-American, but not a ton and not too many of the big names. And so this one stands at the front for that set as well.
Agreed. We talked about Jim Thorpe a lot for the 33 card, but some people consider this his most sought after card too. And it's just a beautiful example. The colors and the team logos are what really stand out to me for these 55 Topps All-American cards. And I mean, just a great example of a card.
Yeah, I would say it's more sought after because it's actually somewhat attainable, right? That 33 comes up pretty rare and is a little bit higher priced, right? So you can get yourself your hands on one of these a little bit more easily. And so, yeah, I would be chasing this one too. Thankfully, I've got one. I know you have one as well. Great cards. Got to have one in the collection if you're a football guy, right?
Absolutely.
All right, number 14. And like I said, a lot of the 55 All-Americans are horizontal, and Don Hudson leads the way. Just the best wide receiver for the however many years of football until, Largent probably dabbled with him just on some statistics, but until Rice was a mainstay, probably 10 years or so into his career, Don Hudson was everything and all of that, had all of the stats by a mile over everybody, and really helped change the game because not only was the game about quarterbacks and just big, heavy guys, there were guys that could sprint out on the sidelines and catch a lot of balls too and score a lot of touchdowns. He scored way more touchdowns than anybody of his era by far.
Absolutely. I think at the time people were unsure of him because he was kind of a tall, lanky guy. But man, he was fast and he could play. Obviously, I think Jerry Rice, from a statistical standpoint, is the best receiver of all time, obviously. But when you compare him in his era to Jerry Rice in his era, some would say that Don Hudson was actually more dominant in the era that he played. When he left the game, he was so far ahead of anybody else in statistics. It was ridiculous. So just a great card. You got a little bit of the Alabama Crimson Tide wave there from his college team, and just a great card, of course. First ballot Hall of Famer, Don Hudson.
Absolutely. Number 15. All right, and we got a little homage back to the college game here, but an all-time classic. And if you saw the back of Newt Rockney's 35 Chickle card, it made mention of the Four Horsemen, and here they are. They got their own card in 1955. And kind of just the lone anomaly card within the 1955 Topps All-American set as well. But if you're of that era or familiar with that era, these folks were not strangers and represented absolute success in the college game, and a pretty iconic card. So we had to give a tip of the cap, put this one on the ballot.
Yeah, a great depiction of the Notre Dame backfield at the time, and they won a lot of games with those four in the backfield. And just another, beautiful example. These 55 Topps All-Americans are super colorful and present a great story about the player. And they're certainly not cheap either. These are definitely sought after in the hobby.
This one for sure.
Exactly.
All right, number 16. 57 Topps. A beautiful all horizontal set depicting kind of a profile pic on one side and an action photo on the other. Lots of Hall of Famers in this set, which is nice. That always helps, build up the excitement for a set and everything. But, the guys themselves would have carried it probably a little bit too. And Johnny Unitas is one of those guys, just the clean crew cut, always smiling, always positive guy. He was kind of the face of football for a while and just represented a whole lot of success and obviously did very well as a quarterback for the Baltimore Colts. And just a great all-around card.
Yeah, I mean, the 57 set, again, very nice and colorful. They are horizontal cards, but it presents an opportunity to show the action shot and then the facial shot as well, which is kind of neat. And yeah, Unitas was, Mr. All-America quarterback back in the 50s and 60s to watch. So great card and probably a decent chance to get on that first ballot this year.
Absolutely. 17. Bart Starr. I won't say much. I'll let Scotty take this one, but another beautiful card, very sought after. And when it finds people's PCs, they don't come back out. So I still haven't added one of these to my collection, but I'm looking forward to it. Scotty, what you got?
I mean, yeah, Bart Starr obviously was the Packers quarterback of the 50s and 60s, and kind of was Vince Lombardi's like right-hand man, his captain on the field. And I think when they had lost to the Pittsburgh Eagles in 1960 in the championship game, and Lombardi had said at the time that they'll never lose another game in the postseason, and they never did while he was coach. And Bart Starr exemplified him on the field as the coach. And what's interesting about the Bart Starr rookie card is there's only about half of them graded compared to the Johnny Unitas. So I think that's because Johnny Unitas was a double print in that set. So just some kind of a unique thing here. And again, Starr along with Unitas, these are, top 10, top 20 football cards of all time, in my opinion, and probably another decent shot to get on that first ballot as well right here. For sure. And,
it's a shame we didn't have Super Bowls back then, because I think we forgot about all those NFL championships for the years. But while Bart Starr is a Hall of Famer and people give him love, like he doesn't get the credit that he deserves based on all the NFL championships that they brought home there to Green Bay in his tenure. Number 18, another Packer. Bart Starr didn't do it alone. He did some awesome things, but he had a heck of a team and a whole lot of Hall of Famers. And he had another great one that shares a 57 rookie with him, and Paul Hornung. Scotty, what you got on him?
Yeah, well, he was the first overall pick in the draft out of Notre Dame, actually, nicknamed the Golden Boy. And man, he held some interesting records. Most points in a game I believe it was most points in a season. I think he was like 176 in a season. That stood until like 06 when LaDainian Tomlinson broke that record. But just kind of a unique stat from Hornung. He did it all. He was a kicker. He could catch the ball. He could run the ball. Just a great all-around athlete and football player.
Mm-hmm. And as you call him, the Golden Boy, they literally gave him a golden face on the card, right?
He does look like.
Number 19, Jim Brown. Man. Love this card. It carries the 58 set, because there's a lot of cards in the 58 set that aren't that appealing. But this one, with the beautiful contrast of his background and him running, and then just what he represented for football, 10 monster outstanding seasons, just crushing everybody that tried to get into the way. All time, led the league in rushing pretty much every year, and was by far the rushing leader as far as a career goes when he retired. And if you ever watch any of his highlights, there's no question that he and anything associated with him, to include this card, deserves to be talked about on a regular basis.
Yeah, a great player, great all-around athlete. I think he also played lacrosse and basketball as well. Mm-hmm. And he just came onto the scene and just dominated. He was a great running back. This card can be prone to centering issues, I think, as well as the chipping on the back. It has that red background, as you can kind of see on the right-hand side there. So condition can be a problem for this card. But I think I'd read he held the all-time yards per carry record at 5.2 yards per carry for many, many years. I'm not sure if anybody actually broke that or if he still holds it, but I know
Jamal Charles has it now. And there's a couple of guys that once they get a couple more carries, they'll push him back down. But, he was by far and away that leader for a long time.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And yes, as you said, for condition, a lot of snow problems with the black background for his card specifically. And then something I noticed when I was looking for many years to pick this one up, was the registration of his face. A lot of his pictures are just blurry, and sometimes even a little offset with how they overlaid the shot there. But this one's a nice example and just a beautiful card, and a must-have for a football collector, and represents the 50s football well. Number 20. Get into the 62 tops, the condition-sensitive, another horizontal set, but all black borders. they didn't know what they were doing at the time, setting up for all black borders and how that would sit in shoe boxes for years until we found penny sleeves and top loaders and things. But neat action shots, and then a nice big shoulders bust shot there or whatever. And Mike Dick, came onto the scene with a fury, put tight ends on the map kind of thing, and did very well, not just as a rookie, I think he had 1,300 yards or something as a rookie, just something ridiculous. But, changed the game of receiving a little bit in his own way, because now there's somebody in the middle of the field that's catching all those balls, not just on the outside. And then we know him, obviously, from our timeline as a coach of the Bears as well, but he was a great player before that. Yeah,
a coach for the Bears. I believe coached the 85 Bears Super Bowl team. And Ditka's really he's a player, I'd say. Yeah, he was a good player and everything, but he really kind of transcended into pop culture a little bit as well. And that certainly affects the collectability of this card. And also for him, coaching that Chicago Super Bowl team. Bigger city, big collector's base. And that's why it's on the list.
And he did get some playing years in Dallas, and that always helped at that time for him too, right?
That's right.
21. Fran Tarkenton. This was, as far as I'm aware, the first big numbers guy for football as far as putting up big yards. He was slippery too. He was sneaky and running around and things like that, but usually he was buying himself time as opposed to just full on scrambling. But put up a lot of big numbers as a quarterback. And then hopefully most of you weren't Minnesota Vikings fans in the 70s, but if you were, you found your way to, I think, 4 Super Bowls if memory serves, and it didn't work out, but somebody was leading you there, and Fran Tarkenton was that. And just great player, great looking card, and well represented in 62.
Yeah, perhaps a little unheralded just because he didn't win any of those Super Bowls, but he put up some really great numbers for the time and did everything but win Super Bowls around that time. So Great card from a very tough set that's riddled with all kinds of chipping issues, being the black borders, of course.
Yeah. 22. 63 Fleer, Len Dawson. Some AFL guys made it on the list, which is nice. They often also get forgot about as well because they merged into the NFL later. But a couple of those guys were still, their star power transcended the AFL into football as a whole. And Len Dawson is one of those folks. I remember seeing, I grew up seeing pictures of him sitting at halftime smoking a cigarette, on the bench. But, he won a couple of championships, I believe, in the AFL, put the Chiefs on the map. It was a good number of years after he left before they won anything again. But great quarterback and a great iconic set in 63 Fleer.
Yeah, the AFL is definitely a big part of, pro football as well. So it's good to get a couple of those guys on there. And, yeah, I think you're thinking of that photo with Len Dawson smoking the cigarette or the cigarette and with a bottle of Fresca next to him. And I think that's just pretty funny for the time. And Len Dawson, as well as the next guy we're going to talk about, Lance Allworth, another great AFL player as well. It was just important to get a couple of these players on this countdown, I think.
Sure. 23. As mentioned, Lance Allworth, a great receiver. And, kind of in the mold of a little bit of a Don Hudson, didn't put up those numbers, didn't play for those winning type of teams. But, somebody as fast and elusive like that, and a great player in the AFL, all AFL for most of his tenure playing in the AFL. So great card, a tough card to find as well. Him and Len Dawson, these are tough cards to find. So if you find one that you kind of like, you might want to get after it and prioritize it. But beautiful card. What you got, Scoonie?
Lance Allworth, I believe he's the first AFL player inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So just an important card in that right, I think. But yeah, great receiver and got to get the AFL some notoriety. So here we have it.
24. Ray Nitschke. To me, a representative of toughness, just the old school football. You don't see no tape on his hands, no glove on his hands, just getting after it. He's already lost all of his hair as a rookie. I don't think this was a picture of his rookie year. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but looking like an old man already, but still just a dominant force. A beautiful card, no less, because you got a color match there with the green and yellow, which didn't happen too often in '63. But the defense of the Packers in the '60s was legitimate as well, and he was the leader.
Yeah, I think this is probably the most sought-after card in the 1963 top set. It's a beautiful card. I like it as a Packers fan because of the green and yellow borders. They match well with the card itself, of course. And yeah, Ray, I think was like 27 or 29 in this picture or something. I mean, it just goes to show you the kind of tough life and the tough area where he grew up. And he was an animal on the field, and he was actually a gentleman off of it. But when he went on the field, something changed in him, and I think he was able to exercise, all of his demons that he had on the football field. And, he's one of only just a handful of Packers with their number retired as well.
Outstanding. 25. The tall boy with 65 tops, Joe Namath. Obviously, he's made popular by promising a Super Bowl victory, and it worked out. But a short printed card, I can only imagine how difficult it was to store cards in general back in the day, but I don't imagine too many shoe boxes were the height of this card. And if you laid it sideways, then, those cards are shifting all around and things like that. Beautiful set. Broadway Joe is, he transcended more than football. He was just a popular cultural icon, which needs to happen for his football lore to exist a little bit more, because his statistics are a little ugly if you look them up. But a beautiful card to represent the 65 tops. Tough to find centered from time to time. But, a monster. I need to add this one soon, but I don't have it yet. What do you got, Scott?
I'd also like to add this card at some point. There is a little bit of a variation, I guess, with a little mark on his wrist called the butterfly variation. Yeah. That's just something to look for if you ever have to look for this card. And I'm reminded of the story, of the image on the card. I think they took this photo when he was sick or recovering in a hospital or something from some injury, surgery, or
they came to him to take the photo. Yep.
Yeah. So he looks a little maybe distraught in the picture, but it is a piece of Americana and art. And I think the fact, even just you have that big New York up there, I think that just is very appealing to a lot of, New York collectors. And
Absolutely.
They hold a huge part of the hobby collecting base.
Mm-hmm. And he was that first big Jets player now that they're not the Titans, right?
Exactly.
26. Another brick wall of a man, in the line of Bednarik, Nitschke, and now we got Dick Butkus. A monster of the midway, just a tough, you ran into him and you stopped, and that's what happened. You hit the ground. Just big square jaw guy, represents everything about football. And, he's who I grew up seeing a lot of NFL films. If they were, doing those little montages of flashbacks, somehow Dick Butkus was in the middle of it, shutting down some offense. And it was great.
Beautiful card, tough to find centered, and tough to get in good high condition because of that little chipping you would see on the back with the green borders. I think Dick Butkus probably overshadowed Nitschke a little bit during his time. They were both linebackers. Dick Butkus was probably 1 and Nitschke was 1A. So they were both awesome though. He was very consistent. A lot of Pro Bowl, All-Pro type appearances, and what can you say? Just a great player over his time.
Absolutely. And maybe something to mention, 65 tops is just AFL players. And in that time frame, Philadelphia was for the NFL. So you'll see 64 through 67 Philadelphia is on the NFL side, and tops was over on the AFL side during that time period. 27. Another Bear, Gale Sayers, very short tenure in the NFL, but he took the NFL by storm, returning kicks, catching passes, running the football, all pro as much as he could for the few years that he was in. And so it was so popular, he might be the shortest tenured NFL player that's in the NFL. Maybe somebody snuck one in on him, but he's down at the bottom, but nobody has ever questioned whether he should be there or not. And a beautiful Heisman type pose here. with all the colors popping of the Chicago Bears uniform.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add to that. Just a great player, a dynamic runner when he played, and you got to love that pose on the front of a card. I mean, if that's not a classic pose, I don't know what is.
Absolutely. 28. OJ. Run, OJ, run. 1970 tops. Kind of a neat set, a little bit change up from what they had been doing. And they were getting creative with tops over those couple of years, late 60s and into the 70s. And so this was kind of that new evolution. I think, the popularity does have some to do with the color pop on this one, that blue and the pink. For whatever reason, they chose pink. I guess that was supposed to be kind of a Bills red, and it came out pink, but it looks great. Just giant square jaw. And obviously OJ, if you watched football in the 70s, was just a monster. He was, didn't quite do what Jim Brown did. He looked real similar doing it there for the 70s. And just a great player. And I'm fortunate enough to have a couple of his in Niners uniforms as well, because he finished out his career with us.
Yeah, he was the guy in the 70s as a running back. And, there are some pop culture things with him as well, for better or worse. I don't know how that affects the popularity of the card necessarily, but even just as a player, if you look at him as a player, just a great player. And I think that's why he's on this list more than anything.
Absolutely. I think the card is pretty popular. Just we don't share it on social media quite as much after we purchase it, right? But it's a necessary card in the collection for sure. And he was breaking lots of records doing 14 game seasons instead of the much longer seasons now. 29. Right. Terry Bradshaw. Obviously, we all know he won 4 Super Bowls with the Steelers in the 70s, which is a very significant thing for any quarterback. And since, like I said before, the Super Bowls kind of pushed away what we remember about NFL championships. We kind of look to him as one of the most winningest quarterbacks of all time. He's definitely in that list, maybe not as high as we give him credit for, but a great, tough quarterback, called his own plays, was getting beat to hell in the 70s by the Raiders and things like that, and still stayed in there. And then 71, beautiful set, full colored borders and things like that. Condition sensitive because of that, but great looking set. And just a classic golden boy look here on the photo as well.
Yeah, don't have too much to add. It's a tough card because of the the chipping and the centering that can plague the 71 top set. But yeah, obviously Terry Bradshaw deserves to be on this list with his 4 Super Bowls and was a great player for the Steelers for many years.
Absolutely. 30. Captain America here. 72 tops, beautiful set. Roger Staubach, Heisman winner at the Naval Academy, and then after completing his service, came back to the Cowboys as if he hadn't missed a step. Very elusive quarterback. At the time, there weren't a whole lot of quarterbacks that were getting a lot of rushing yards. Not that he was breaking too many records. Those are small numbers compared to what you see some of the guys do today, but a very elusive, athletic guy. Very, again, clean-cut guy, represented football very well. And, for America's team, I don't know how they got that name, but they, that's how we refer to him a lot of times, to be the leader of that team, to be very successful in the 70s, and then to represent what everybody was, looking for in somebody to model themselves or what their kids were looking up to. This is that guy. And just a great looking card all around too.
Yeah, amazing. He was able to go into the Navy for 5 or 6 years, I think, and then before he would have come back to play football.
At least 4, right? Yeah. I'm not sure because it was Vietnam time frame, so I don't know if he had to do a little bit extra there, but at least 4 years.
Yeah, but he wasn't playing football at a professional level during that time, and it's amazing he could come in and just pick up where he left off, and was kind of well known for his, I believe, his efficiency numbers at the time. Mm-hmm. While before that was kind of a thing. You look at some of those old quarterback stats, and there you see guys with tons of interceptions, tons, touchdowns. Some of them had more interceptions than touchdowns.
Yes, a lot of them did.
Yeah, and so Staubach was a very good and efficient quarterback. And
he was very much so, and that's what afforded them to win games that were 14-7 games and stuff, because he wasn't turning over, right? That was the field position game. And yes, if you look at his numbers specifically, he never, he didn't surpass 30,000 career yards or anything like that. But the efficiency in that quarterback rating, which is probably relatively new during his time frame, were way higher than a lot of his contemporaries. Number 31. Sweetness, right? Can't leave out this card. Walter Payton obviously did a lot of things for the Chicago Bears, did it in a beautiful style and fashion, but broke the records for rushing as well, not just at the time for a game, but as a career by the end of it. And just a classic, good football jaw there with a nice smile looking like a square at you. And 76 has a nice frame around his photo. Good looking set.
I don't know of any other cards that maybe a Chicago Bears fan would fawn over other than this particular card. Sweetness, Walter Payton was an awesome player, and this is a great card. That's why it's on the list.
Mm-hmm. 32. Joe Montana. I'm a fan, right? Great card. Another 4 Super Bowl winner, 3 Super Bowl MVPs in that time frame, 2 MVPs in the season. And Joe Cool, right? If you get yourself a cool nickname, it's going to help. And so, just a classic card. He carries the 81 top set. There's not a whole lot of big cards in that set by any means. But this is a beautiful pose, picture, everything, and definitely a card that needed to be on the list.
Agreed.
33. Lawrence Taylor. Man, I loved watching this guy play football. He was just a bad dude.
Love these defensive guys.
Came into the league, I think Defensive Player of the Year and Rookie of the Year in the same year. Just getting the sacks. He even had a pick 6, I think, that went for about 81 yards or something like that in his rookie year. And when you lined up on offense, you were looking to see where this guy was, and you were hoping 2 guys that were really large were going to block him in hopes for the best. Just a bad dude, all pro everything, one of the top tier defenders of all time football, if not the one.
Yeah. Arguably the best defensive player of all time. He's probably going to be on this list. So definitely the key card of the 82 top set as well.
Absolutely. And 82 tops for me is probably one of my favorite sets of all time. Just the design and everything else. I love all the 49ers cards clearly in it, but there's some great rookies that go along with it, and this is one of them. 34. Dan Marino. We'll get some 84 tops in here. Took passing game to another level, right? And I can't speak for the guys that are older than me, or before my time, but this was, as far as I know, the first big arm guy. Just gunslinging it out there, 5,000 yards, first one for many, many years to do that, 48 touchdowns his second year in. Thankfully, my Niners prevailed in the Super Bowl against him, and it's only one. But Dan Marino, if you were watching football in the 90s and 2000s, if he came on, you were watching, and 84 is an all-time classic set. Love that old Dolphins logo there on the bottom left. Just a great card.
Yep. And I'll just add, this 84 top set known for, centering issues and print defects as well. So where you can find a fair amount of cards in 8 or a 9, finding them in a 10 is almost impossible. It's very, very difficult to find.
Absolutely. 35. Even harder in a PSA 10 will be the John Elway, right? Yeah. But another great set, and obviously, multiple Super Bowl winner. Lost himself a couple of them before he finally got 2 of them towards the end of his career, but great player, Mr. Mile High. I don't know if I just gave him that nickname, but that's what should be the nickname. Put the Broncos on the map for sure, because they didn't have a whole lot of winning teams before that. Obviously his numbers are now been pushed aside by some of these modern era guys, but he did have some big passing numbers for his time frame as well.
Yeah, I'm still a little salty about that Packers-Broncos Super Bowl. But certainly John Elway, just like Dan Marino. If you're a big-time quarterback for a long time, you're probably going to be on this list, in the rights of Joe Montana, Terry Bradshaw, Roger Staubach, John Elway's kind of the next one here.
It sure helps. 36. Yep. Reggie White, the Minister of Defense. Great card. Kind of it's an XRC as it were, as we go in the hobby there, because he does have an 86 tops in the Eagles uniform. But 2 years before that, for the Showboats in 1984, tops USFL. Some good number of rookies in here with Reggie White and Jim Kelly and Steve Young and whatnot. But Reggie White, I think, to me, leads that way. I'm sure you're pretty fond of him as well, being a Packers guy. But, man, this guy was a monster. And you would just see him use a forearm and shove anybody out of the way and put them on their butts. And, just a great player. Gone too soon, but an awesome card as well, and kind of a neat one to showcase. So they're not all 1984 tops that year. We had some at USFL as well.
Yep, those magenta background borders did not help for chipping, and also centering was an issue with this card as well. Reggie White, obviously gone way too soon, unfortunately, but he's probably my favorite player of all time, being a Packers fan.
Awesome.
And what's interesting about this card, I think there's only 7 10s out there if you're a PSA fan, 7 PSA 10s, so almost impossible to find in a 10. You can find quite a few 8s and some 9s, but a 10s, it's just impossible because of the black borders and some interesting tilt and centering issues you get with this card.
Right, and they didn't come in those regular packs, right? They came in that little box and kind of jostled around and stuff. So you got to buy a complete set and hope that sucker's perfectly in the middle, getting protected by all the other cards, right?
Exactly.
Number 37.
You could take
my
this
man, the GOAT. 86 tops, Jerry Rice. 86 tops. They were changing the designs pretty well through the 70s and 80s, but anytime you get such a bold color on the border, it stands out a little bit more. A great set, but Rice, kind of reinvented what receivers we had on the map, right? We had Hudson, we had some Allworth, but there was a lull where you have Largent was the big guy, but Largent wasn't an after the catch or necessarily a deep down the field guy. He just caught absolutely everything that was thrown to him, and Rice threw that whole mix of it in there, and then kind of was unexpected as well. Not necessarily the highest draft pick, still made it into the first round, but from a historically black college, and so didn't know where he was coming from, and proceeded to break absolutely every record there was, and just played for forever. So my all-time favorite, my first game I remember seeing was him winning the Super Bowl MVP in Super Bowl 23, and I have a ridiculously large PC of just this guy.
I would agree with everything you said, and obviously statistically the best wide receiver the game has ever seen. The consistency over the period of time, it's just unmatched, really. And then the card is tough itself with the green borders and chipping and centering, and his demand for collectors combined with that kind of a tough, it's kind of tough to get this card in high grade. Means that those high grade cards are fairly pricey.
Right. And some alignment issues as well. So you see those black lines around the yellow, and you can see them shifted a lot of times in the cards as well. 38. Barry Sanders, my favorite guy to watch. I just was showing highlights to my 6-year-old yesterday about Barry Sanders and watching him just juke people out and spin them around and stuff. 89 score, kind of, as at the front end of a little bit of a hobby explosion, especially in football. Baseball started a little bit earlier, spreading out different sets and stuff, but we didn't have multiple sets until 89 score came along, and 89, we had some spread there. I'm not huge on the photo that's used on this card. I do like his 89 tops a little bit more, but as far as iconic and everything, 89 score is it. I wish he'd have played longer. He played 10 seasons and averaged more than 1,500 yards per season, and, on a terrible Lions team every season, and still we would all want to watch, especially on Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah, just an electric runner. And retired in 1999, so only about 9 or 10 years in the league, really. So, but he was awesome when he was here. I just wish he would have been here a little longer. But even when he was there for just a short time, he did a lot and certainly deserves to be on the ballot.
And 89 scores got those solid borders as well, just like we mentioned with a lot of other sets. Those are always going to give you condition problems for the card. Number 39. Speaking of condition problems on the borders, right? 1990 score supplemental, Emmitt Smith, the all-time rushing leader. and a mainstay for 3 Cowboys Super Bowls. Awesome player. The set itself is pretty neat. 1990 score is what got me started into football. I didn't necessarily have supplemental back then because the supplemental set came in a little box set just like the USFL did, or for you baseball guys out there, those Topps traded sets of the 80s, it came in a set just like that, which makes it even tougher. You got centering issues and everything, but when it's bouncing around in a little box like that, good luck with your condition. Still can do okay with the grades, but 10s aren't all that common, and especially in the Surge, they're pretty expensive. But a beautiful card, a little bit of a color match. I'll go with that on this. I'm a big fan of 1990 score. It was slept on for so many years, but great card.
Yeah, agreed. One of the best running backs of all time. He just would decimate my Packer teams of the early to mid 90s. He would just run through them like Swiss cheese. And man, he was a great player. And yeah, a great looking card as well, and tough and high grade as well. You wouldn't think, with the production of the time, but it can be tough to find in a 10.
It is. Number 40, Brett Favre, 91 Stadium Club, wearing his Southern Miss college uniform there. But 91 Stadium Club was kind of the first high-end product out there, right? Like 89 score pushed it up a notch, and then Stadium Club came out of it was kind of another level. We hadn't seen or heard something like that before, and he kind of carries that set with the big rookie there. Other rookies have him in the Falcons. Takes him another year for him to get into the Packers uniform there, but great gunslinger quarterback and great card itself.
Yeah, I agree. And this card's the one with the error on it, so the name Favre is spelled wrong on the bottom, which is kind of a unique thing about this card. When he had a lot of passing records when he retired. Obviously, those have been passed since. I think you see that as like a trend along the way here, right?
Yeah.
Like quarterback sets a mark and it's broken and broken and broken. Here we are now with Brady holding a lot of the records just due to his longevity and consistency in the game. So, but certainly Favre brought the Packers back to relevance, and I feel really definitely deserves to be on this list as a player for sure.
Absolutely. 41. As you see, we're getting a little bit more into the modern stuff, but there won't be too many of them, right? Because we're already into the 40s. But 98 SP Authentic, Peyton Manning here. Beautiful set. Low print run there, so tough cards to find out of 2000. So there is a demand for them for sure. But beautiful photo of him, kind of getting ready, in a practice or something like that. And then you get to add the action shot. But one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time, just a master of an offense, no matter what was going on. Always playing back and forth chess games with the defense. I enjoyed watching him on a regular basis, put up lots of big numbers, won lots of games. Would have won a lot more if Tom Brady wasn't there. We'll see him here shortly, but great card.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite sets. I really like the 98 SP Authentic set. We'll talk about another one coming up here as well in Randy Moss. But just a really cool set. It's very tough condition-wise due to chipping on the borders, and they're all numbered out of 2000. So tough to find in good condition, and they have a scarcity built in already.
Yeah. All right, next up, 42. Randy Moss. All right, we talked about the set a little bit, but Randy Moss, arguably the most talented receiver out there, right? As a Jerry Rice guy, I'm thankful that he didn't play nearly as long as Jerry Rice did because he's putting up crazy numbers. Did end up breaking Rice's record for touchdowns and receiving in a season with 23. Rice had 22 in a strike short and 12-game season, so I still keep that one. But just phenomenal guy. And, he put up stat lines, the all-time crazy stat line of 3 catches, 163 yards, and 3 touchdowns in that, I believe it was a Thanksgiving game. But, you could just throw that ball deep, and he was going to find it, and you got mossed, right? And we got to have a player like that get represented here. And then when he has a rookie card in an all-time classic set like this, it just makes for a good match, right?
Yeah, when he came out of the scene, he was just like a new kind of receiver. Like he just kind of threw it up and he went and got it. And I think he kind of represents more of kind of what the modern receiver really is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely deserves to be on this list.
Absolutely. 43. Boo. Tom Brady. But this card itself kind of changed the hobby, right? As football guys, there was not a lot of big money that ever into the football hobby. Even, you guys, baseball always had the Ty Cobbs and the Ruths and things like that were pushing its stuff up. We just didn't have stuff that really pushed the market until Tom Brady became big. And then all of a sudden this card started hitting otherworldly numbers as far as values and things. And then when you talk about contenders, and back then they were very limited print. They didn't number them yet, but they were very limited print. On-card autographs and a neat design with the ticket on the side. It was just a perfect match to go along with it. And so a very iconic card that has, pushed the football side of the hobby into very significant levels.
Yeah, obviously the best, statistical quarterback, I think, to play the game at this point. And, this is his rookie card, and it's an autographed version of the card. And you just look at some of the price points on this card, obviously there are a lot of people out there that highly value this card, and they're willing to pay for it. So just that on its own, I think, deserves to be on this list. And I think we have another Brady card to talk about next.
For sure. 44.
Non-autographed version.
Out of 1250, so even shorter, right?
Right. This is going to be the card that's part of all the big set registries, and the PSA set registry does play a pretty big role in the value of some of these cards, rookie cards that we have on the list. So the hobby has kind of determined that this is the card. And I actually like the SP Authentic cards. I think they're super clean looking. I always have. And this is certainly Brady's example of his rookie card, SP Authentic.
It does. This set almost makes any card in the set worth collecting, just because they're such a clean look. I wish we had a rookie worth collecting in 2000 because I love this set as well. And a monster card. And Tom Brady has done so much in the game and won so much and broken so many records that he's got 2 in the top 45. And, I can't say nothing about it. He earned him. So
agreed.
We'll move on to the last one, 45. The most modern of the cards in here, the 05 Topps Chrome. And before we came on air, I kind of joked. I was like, even our picture is off center because 05 Chrome is notorious for having that left-right problems. And so you got to be content pretty much all the time if you get a 9 when you grade one yourself or something like that. But that's just the default. But beautiful cards. That Chrome from that year, I don't know, just sticks out a little bit more to me with the contrast and the white and everything. He's in his practice jersey, and he had to sit on the sideline for a couple of years behind Brett Favre. But when he got his chance, he made the most of it and developed an iconic card in the process.
Yeah, 4-time MVP of the league, and a leader in some of the passer rating, passing efficiency numbers all time as well, touchdown interception ratio all time. So, he'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer whenever he does hang it up.
Absolutely.
And this is his rookie card, and it does have its condition issues, right? Like, this is not like, some of the newer Prism cards or something where the pops are in the 20,000s or whatever for PSA 10s. I think there's only like 200 PSA 10s of this card out there, or 250, something like that.
It's
out of like 1,000 or 2,000 that have been graded. So there's just not a lot out there. And it's due to the centering issues, as Bart had mentioned, and also the scratching, that can happen on these Topps Chrome cards as well.
All right. So that's the list. So some things you can look forward to for the vote. Obviously, it starts today. As you're seeing the video, the link is down below. We'll cut off the voting around February 8th, 12 Eastern time. That gives us some time to keep track of the tabulation and then finalize who made it and make a video to publish that out. And you can look forward to that on February 11th, our induction day. And that is one day before Super Bowl Sunday. I'm hoping for the Niners. Scotty's hoping for the Packers. We'll see what happens. But make sure you check out that link below. Subscribe on the Sports Card Hall of Fame Network. And again, thanks to my co-commissioner here, Scotty Tradition, as well as the boys behind the scenes with Mike, Victor, and Ray from Philly. That's all we got for you today. We look forward to your voting, and we look forward to seeing you again. Scotty, what you got to close us out?
Man, just a lot of fun going through some of these cards. It makes me want to actually go and pick up some of the cards that I don't have that we talked about. We can't have everything, and I certainly don't have all the cards that we talked about. But yeah, it's I think it's a very strong list, and it'll be fun to see what the public thinks about this and which 10 will end up being on the first ballot.
For sure. All right. Thanks, guys. Till we see you next time. Later.
Thank you.